Okay, good morning. At least it's morning now when I'm doing this video. As the painter Bob Ross, the guy with the afro on TV that paints, as he would say, let's have some fun today. Okay, today what we're going to do is we're going to explore what this idea of Photoshop mockups. We're going to create a graphic. We're going to create a simple graphic for a fictitious restaurant. And then we're going to apply that graphic to a mock-up. And a mock-up is simply kind of a photograph of where the actual graphic is going to appear. So if it's a sign, it's shown in a frame or something in a frame in front of a building or something. If it's a billboard, it's shown literally on a photograph of a billboard. And the way it's done is that Photoshop artists create these mock-ups and they offer them for, they sell them, or there's a lot of sites where you can get them for free. And you download them and you open them up in Photoshop, you create your art, your graphic, and then you insert it in the mockup. And when you save it out, as we'll see, it applies it to that actual photograph. And all the perspective and the angles are all adjusted for. If it's a label for a package or a bottle, it wraps around the bottle. So you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is just create the graphic and the mockup will automatically create the shadows and the highlights and all of these things. It's really cool. And so I will show you that in this particular project. Okay, so let's go to what we're going to end up doing. This is going to be the final result. The artwork is called the Husky House Bar and Grill, and we're going to create that in Photoshop and then insert it in this mock-up. There's two versions that we're going to create. We're going to create one that has kind of an embossed logo of this husky and some text underneath. And then the second version is going to be one that has a little bit more contrast. It's easier to see from a distance, and we want to give them a second version so that they can have a choice of which one they like. This one tends to be a little bit more kind of rustic version, and this looks like it's almost carved out of wood. And we could have actually done that too as a background. We could have done a wood background. And then this one is more of a kind of, actually it's filled with a Photoshop style called rabbit fur. And I apologize for any animal activists out there, but that is an actual fill texture for in Photoshop. And we're going to talk about Photoshop styles too, because we're going to need to use certain Photoshop styles in order to create this look. And you have Photoshop styles that are part of the program. When you subscribe to the cloud, Photoshop gives you X amount of styles. And it seems like they're giving you more styles these days than before. But I am gifting you even more styles that you can load into Photoshop and you can use for particular projects. Now, again, because you're having to load them into Photoshop, when you turn off your computers, it's going to, delete them from Photoshop, just like fonts. Okay, we know how fonts work. So you're going to have to keep loading the Photoshop styles in every day if you want it to be accessed in your Photoshop document. Otherwise, when you open up your Photoshop document, if you didn't reload in your styles every day, it's going to default to something else. Or so that's another thing that really You know, I just really can't stand with a lot of the computers at school because we have this deep freeze thing. But anyway, we have to deal with it. So we will deal with it. Okay, now the artwork that we're going to create is going to look just like this. Okay, this is the rabbit fur filled version, and it's just a, you know, square graphic done two-dimensionally and done in Photoshop. And then this is the other version of that. So we're going to create these two versions, and then we're going to insert them in the mockup, and the end result is going to be a photograph that looks like this. Now, a lot of designers, graphic designers, show their work as mockups because it just looks better. It looks better than just a square piece of art. And it also is beneficial for a client because the client can now picture exactly how it's going to look in front of their restaurant. Now, in this case, this is all a fictitious, you know, place. It doesn't exist. So I just picked one of the mock-ups, you know, a generic mock-up, and we'll say this is the Husky house back here. Okay, so a lot of things to talk about, and I want to make sure that I talk about them in an order that you can understand. First of all, let's talk about places that we can get mock-ups, resources where we can get mock-ups. So I'm going to go over to Google, and one of the places that I use that gives you free mock-ups is a site called freepik.com. It's FREEPIK. I already have it loaded up here, so it finds it, and it's a site that looks like this, okay? And in this, you'll see that they offer, you know, mock-ups. Now, a lot of these mock-ups cost, you know. In other words, you have to subscribe to FreePik, and there's a subscription fee. And once you subscribe, then you have a premium account, and then you can download pretty much anything on their site. If you don't have to be a, you know, subscriber. You could still get free mock-ups, but some of them you'll see are only for premium subscribers. Okay, so in the search area here, I'm going to type in restaurant signage, and we're going to go to some of the mock-ups that they're offering for restaurant signage. And you can see here that this is the one that I'm going to use. We're going to use for this assignment. This is the mock-up, but they have others, and some are more kind of contemporary, you know, mock-ups. Again, when you click on them, you'll see, if you see a green button here, that means that this is a free download. You can also see that there's a free license, and you don't need to list an attribution. Some of these mock-ups will require you to list who designed or where you got the mock-up, and you know, if you're wanting to use it commercially. Others will not even have this green download button, and we'll go to one that doesn't have this green download button, like this one here. Oh, this one does. Sorry. I know that there's some in here that don't have that. I think this one might. Okay. Now this one here, you can see there's watermarks all over this, and it says download but go premium. So you have to subscribe to freepik.com in order to get this. Others are going to be such that, let me see if I can find one that has both, it's both free but allows you to, but requires you an attribution. Some of these are like that, where they give it to you for free, but you're going to have to attribute. Okay, this one here. Okay, this one's actually free. I should have researched this before I'm showing it to you here, but yeah, let's see. Okay, this is also free license. But anyway, some will say requires attribution. Oh, here it is. Attribution is required. Okay, meaning that if you were to use this commercially for an actual project, a paying project, you would have to attribute who, where you got this from. And the attribution I think here is rawpixel.com. So you have to list that somewhere on your piece. And nobody, you wouldn't want to do that for a client, to have to go through that. So anyway, this is a school project, so we don't have to deal with that. What you do is you click on this and you click download, and it will download a zip file to your desktop, and you'll open up the zip file and you'll see the mock-up and all the components, other things in that zip file. All you're looking for is the Photoshop mock-up file. Okay, and we'll get to this as we do this. Okay, so that's one resource, freepik.com. Another place that I like is one called GraphicPair, G-R-A. PHIC pair, graphicpair.com. And that is another site for mockups. You'll see mockups right here, and I'll click on mockups, and you'll see lots of different mockups here for product packaging. So you can design, this is what I'm talking about. You design a label and it automatically wraps it around the bottle. It gives you the shadows and the highlights and all, and it really makes it look realistic. So if you're showing, let's say, what a display would look like for a trade show, you would do it flat in InDesign or Photoshop, and then you would insert it in the mockup, and it would look like an actual printed piece. So this is very common, the way graphic designers show this. Now, if I click on this, you'll see that this requires a premium account in order to download this mockup. But this is the way, basically the mockup started out. You do your design and it ends up looking like this. And you can see how it wraps the design around the bottle. Okay, but this is premium. So what you have to do with GraphicPair, unfortunately, is you have to just keep clicking on these things and seeing which ones are free and which ones you have to pay for. And most of the good ones, I hate to say, are the ones you have to pay for, a subscription. But you'll come across some, okay, that's a paid one. But you'll come across many, actually, not just some, but many that are, okay, it looks like a lot of these are premium accounts. Yeah, download premium account. Okay, you just have to look. Okay, you just have to go through this and look and see which ones are available for free. And this one might be, yeah, here's a free download. Okay, so if you're doing a business card design and you want to show it as it might actually look on a business card, you can download this for free. Okay, you do have to register for the site for GraphicPair, and registration doesn't mean that you're subscribing, so it doesn't cost you anything to register for the site. Go ahead and register. It'll send you a confirmation email and all of that. But once you're registered, then you log in and you can get this free download. Okay, and it's very simple. You just click on the free download here. I'm already registered. I'm already signed in. So, it will, I'll be able to download this. Okay, so GraphicPair and FreePik. Now there's other sites. I'm not going to go through some of the others, but you can find them. Just look for mockups in a Google search, or free mockups if you want free stuff. The best ones, though, are the ones that you have to pay for, and some of them aren't that cheap. I mean, sometimes a mockup is going to cost you maybe $10-15. But if it's your portfolio, and I always tell students this, if it's your portfolio, I mean, it's an investment in your future. So a $10 mockup, it's a good, clean mockup. It's beautiful. Your design looks good. It's worthy of putting it in your portfolio. I mean, it might get you a job. So anyway, okay. So let's get started in creating this graphic here, this Husky House graphic. And we're going to assume that this is a client that has come to us. And let me let me go back here. and talk to you. Okay. Let me just stop sharing this screen here for a sec. Okay, sorry about that. We're going to assume that this client is a startup restaurant. They're called the Husky House Bar and Grill, and they want a logo designed. They want a sign created for the front of their restaurant. They want everything. They want menus. They want business cards. They want posters and banners, and it's unbelievable how much a restaurant needs in terms of graphic design. That's a great client. If you ever get a startup restaurant, there'll be lots of work that they're going to ask you to do as a designer. But anyway, we're going to assume that we have hired our design firm has hired an outside illustrator to design a dog graphic, a husky graphic, and we're going to use that illustration as part of the logo. We're going to add typography to it. We're going to create the whole look. But for the illustration, we farmed it out to a freelance illustrator. And this, again, is something that will make you more valuable if you have illustration skills. A lot of people say, do I need to know how to draw as a graphic designer? And, for the most part, not necessarily, but if you're asked to do things like design logos and you have to draw things, you have to use Illustrator or Procreate, then that ability to do illustration is very valuable to a career too. Okay, but we're going to say that, let's say we have a design firm, none of our graphic designers illustrate very well, so we're farming it out, we're hiring it out. Okay, so on the assignment, and let me go back to let's see, you can't see this, so let me go back. And in this assignment here, you can read the premise here. You're going to get a zip file that says restaurantsignage.zip. And when you open up that zip file, inside of that zip file, you're going to see a Wow Styles folder. Now, these are styles that you're going to load into Photoshop, and I'll show you how to do that. You're also going to have a folder that says Mockup. Now, this is the Mockup that I just showed you, okay, on freepik.com. This is what we're going to use to insert the graphics. You're going to have the Husky graphic. This is what we hired the illustrator to design. Okay, so they did a illustration of a husky. You're also going to have a folder of fonts that you're going to have to load into FontBook. Okay, we're using the font Steelfish, and this is Steelfish right here, the Husky House Bar and Grill. That's the typeface called Steelfish. And then I'm giving you the final versions of what these look like. Okay, this is the final version of what the sign is going to look like. This is the final version of what the other sign is going to look like, and these are versions of the graphics. Okay, but you're going to build this. Okay, you're not going to use this. You're going to build it, and I'm going to make sure that you build it yourself and not just use these. Okay, but I wanted to include these so that you can have an idea of what it's supposed to look like in the end. Okay, so that's what's in the zip file, and that's what you're going to use to start. So let's build this graphic, and then we'll apply the Wow style to the graphic, which is going to make it look like it's embossed. And then we'll do the same with this. We'll apply style. So all we have to do is make up this graphic once, and then the second version will be very easy to create. Okay, we're going to start off in Photoshop. So I'm going to launch Photoshop. And the first thing I'm going to do is, let me just kind of hide this for a sec, is I'm going to open up the illustration inside of Photoshop. So I'm going to go get that Husky graphic, and I'm going to get that graphic and move it into Photoshop. So I usually just kind of drop it on top of the Photoshop icon, and it opens up. And so you can see that this graphic is basically on a transparent background. Okay, it's one layer, it's on a transparent background. We are going to use the original canvas size for our logo. So all we're going to do is just reduce this wolf. See, because if I click on the wolf and I move it around, you can see that the background is transparent. Okay, and I have some specific sizes here so that you don't have to kind of use your judgment, but you should be able to use your judgment when you're looking at something and trying to copy it. You should be able to eyeball it yourself. The canvas size right now is 3600 pixels by 3600 pixels, so it's a square canvas. And we're going to reduce the wolf where the width of the wolf, and you'll see over here, and you'll want to be on your, the palette configuration that I'm on here is, let's see. Oh, it's up here. I think it was Essentials. Not sure. Yeah, it was Essentials. And what you have is you'll have your Properties panel out here. So in your Properties panel, when you reduce the logo, it'll show you what the pixel dimensions are here, width and height. So I'm going to click on this layer, and I'm going to reduce this down. So I'm going to do Command T to transform. Okay, we know Command T is the transform. Oops. Cancel out of that. Okay, Command T. And then I'm going to reduce this down, and I'm going to reduce it down from the center. Okay, it's centered already. And so if I press the, I believe it's the Option key, it reduces from the center. Okay, if I reduced it from the corner without holding any of the modifier keys down, it reduces this way. And then I have to kind of grab it and reposition it, which I don't want to do, so I will reduce it from the center. Okay, let me just go back to this. So again, Command T and hold the Option key down, and then reduce it down to the center until the width becomes about, I think it's 1472 pixels. Okay, now here's another way we can do that, is we can just, I'm going to undo that. We can just come over here to the width and make it 1472 pixels. Okay, I'm going to click Enter, and that will give us the right size that we need this to be. Okay, we'll just recenter this. That's fine. We could do it this way. Okay, so this whole business of reducing it from the center, okay, just kind of ignore that, because we want to get to a 1472 pixel dimension on the wolf. And then just recenter it. And you can see as you move it to the center, you'll get that center line there. Okay, and move it a little bit above center here. Okay, now we're going to put in Husky House Bar and Grill. And that's going to be easy because we'll just get our text tool out. And I'm just going to click kind of, I'm not going to draw a text box. I'm just going to click and insert my cursor. Okay. Now I've already used Steelfish, so it automatically comes up. But if some other typeface comes up here, don't worry about it. Just type in Husky House. Okay, Husky House. And then the size that you're going to make it is 140 points. And that's what I have currently here because that's the last size I used in Photoshop. So it maintains the last typeface and size that you used. And I think I might have tracked this a little tighter. Yeah, I think I went to 0 tracking. Yeah, it should be 0 tracking. So let me highlight this and make this. Here's the tracking field right here. So I'm going to make this 0. And that tightens that up a little bit. Okay. I'm going to bring this down below that, somewhere around here. Notice my color is already kind of this gray color, and that's because that's the last color I used. Yours might be different. Yours might be white. Yours might be who knows. But go to your swatches panel here and choose the gray color, which is, I believe it's this one right here. Okay, this second row, first gray of the second row. Okay, and that's the color that this is going to be. Okay, so if I click off of that, that's that gray. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is we're going to put in bar and grill underneath. So I'm going to grab this text and I'm going to hold the Option key down and just duplicate it and just drag it straight down. Okay, and even though it's the same size and the same thing, we're going to change this now. I'm going to highlight this. And the size of the Husky House Bar and Grill, the Bar and Grill is 36 points. Okay, so I'm going to go right up to, up here I can go here and change it to 36 points. I could do it here or I can do it over here. Here's my type size over here. I can change it to 36 points here. Okay, that makes it that small. I think that's correct. And I'm going to type in bar and grill in all caps. So I'm going to type in my cap locks key, push down my cap locks key, and type in bar and grill. Okay. And then I'm going to spread this thing out, spread the spacing out between this. Now remember, all caps. I'm going to spread the tracking out. Here's your tracking field over here. And I'm going to, now the maximum it goes up to is 200, but I'm going to override that, double click in this field and type in 500. Now 500 means that 500 points are going to be put in between each letter. So when I hit return, it spaces out like that. You see that? Bar and grill. Okay. And that comes up. Okay. Now, I want a background color to this. Right now, there's nothing back here. It's all transparent. And the background color that I want is actually a color from the actual mock-up. And if we look at the mock-up, okay, you can see these browns here. There's a lot of these brown tones here, and that's the actual background color I want. If we look at this, see this brown background color? That was grabbed from this thing right here. So I did a sample of this with the eyedropper tool, and I got the RGB colors, and I made that the background. Okay, well, I've already done that, so I'll give you the RGB mix. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to create a layer. Okay, so I'm going to come down here in my layers palette. Notice in my layers palette I have the two type layers and the actual wolf graphic on a transparent background. I'm going to click add another layer and it adds that layer. Okay, but I'm going to drag this layer to the bottom. Okay, and I'm going to fill this layer now with the color I want the background to be. I'm going to come over to my fill color over here in the toolbar and double click whatever color's in here, whether it's white or black or whatever you have, just double click that. And you're going to come over here under RGB and you're going to put in the values 50 for red, 49 for green, and 45 for blue. Okay, 50, 49, and 45. When you do that, I'm not going to do that because I already have that color up here. When you do that, well, let me just do that. Sorry. Since I'm saying it, 50, tab, 49, tab, 45. Okay? And that gives us this color right here. And when I click OK, that becomes the color here. You'll also see it up in your swatches palette up here. Okay, this color is the latest color. As you make colors, it automatically records those colors up here in your swatches palette in Photoshop. It's the fill color right here, same color as this. Okay, and I'm going to select this background layer here, and I'm going to fill it with Option Delete. So I hold the Option key down on the Mac and hit the Delete key on the keyboard. Okay, Option Delete. And that fills that background color with that brown. Now, because my wolf graphic was black, it kind of disappeared because, you know, black against this dark brown kind of is the same value. You can still see it here. You can still see the wolf graphic. But anyway, we'll leave that the way it is because we're going to create a layer style, and we're going to apply a layer style. Now, in this palette configuration here, you should have your, layer styles. Okay. And if you don't, go up into Windows and click on Styles here. Okay. And you'll see Styles. And they're represented with an FX, and you'll see it appear in your column here, FX. Now, if I pull these styles down, you'll see that I have lots of different styles, okay? These three here, Basics, Natural, and Fur, are the ones I believe, fur, fabric, wood, and wood styles, okay? All of these are the ones you get with Photoshop. I'm going to just spin these down so that you can see. Okay, wood styles. I'm not sure if these are the ones that you get naturally because I loaded styles I loaded these styles as soon as I got my version of Photoshop. I loaded all these new styles. But I think that's what you get. All right. And we are going to use fur. We're going to use this one here. Okay. But there's all these other styles here, the wow button styles. Now, you don't have these in your computer. And what you're going to do is load them into your computer. So in your zip file, okay, the zip file that you got, restaurant signage, you have this folder called wow styles. Okay, and you'll see all of the styles listed here. Okay, all of these styles. Now you're going to need to load these styles into Photoshop. And the way you load styles into Photoshop is you're going to go over to your effects. Okay, you need your effects panel out. Then you're going to go up to the menu here and you're going to see import styles right there. When you click import styles, okay, it's going to take you to where, what folder do you want to import? So you're going to navigate over to your desktop under, or wherever you put your, download. Restaurant signage, wow styles, okay? And I believe you're going to have to select all of these, okay? So select the first one, scroll down, or just open this up. Hold the shift key down and select all of these, okay? And then open them. When you click open, I'm not going to do this because I already have them loaded in my computer, but when you click open, it will populate this styles, your styles offering with all of these wow button styles, and you have lots of button styles here, okay, all the way down. Okay, there's just tons and tons and tons of styles, and this I give to you for free. Now take this folder home with you and load them into Photoshop if you have a version of Photoshop at home. Now the thing is here, again, is that when you load these into Photoshop, when you turn off your computer, they will be kicked out, and you won't, the next time you open up Photoshop, they're not going to be here. So unfortunately, we're going to have to load these in every time, you want to access this. So in other words, let's say you did this and then you saved it and you went home and you turned off your computer and you came in the next day or the next couple of days, and you open up this file again, that style that you applied to this graphic is not going to be there if it was part of these wow styles, because they got kicked out. If you used the style that Photoshop gave you as part of the program, those styles will always be in Photoshop, so you don't have to worry about that. But any styles that you apply that were from the wow styles, it's not going to be done. So you're going to have to redo that again. Okay, hate to say that, but you have to do that. Okay, the style that we're going to use for this wolf graphic here is going to be this style. If you scroll down here, there's a section here called Wow Halo Styles, okay? And these two here give an embossed look on whatever you're clicking. So if it's a black and white line art illustration like this is, okay, I clicked on it and you see how layer 1 has been selected. I'm going to now apply this style to that and watch what happens when I click. Okay? And notice what happened in the layers palette here. It automatically applied the styles that are part of this layer style. The effects, I'm sorry. It applied all the effects that are part of this style. So this style includes bevel and emboss, an inner shadow, and a color overlay. If I click this style here, it's a little bit different. If I click this style down here, it does that. Or this style, or this style. You can have a lot of fun with this because there's a lot of styles that are in these wow styles, okay? Like marble and rocks and glass, things. And all you do is just click around and you can fill that graphic with, chrome and metal and all kind of things. Okay, that one actually looks kind of cool. Okay, but the one that we're going to use is this one right here. Now, once you apply a style, you can actually go into these effects and change the effects. Okay, so if I double click on bevel and emboss right here, it brings up the layer style dialog box, and you can see the styles that are applied are bevel and emboss, inner shadow, and color overlay. Same as what you see here, but we are concentrating on the bevel and emboss parameters. Now this is, notice, we can change the depth. Okay, as I move this, look at how that changes. It gets deeper. Okay, we can change the size. Okay, and that blows it out or tames it down a little bit. Okay, so a lot of things that we can do with the angle, with the bevel, with opacity, all kind of things. There's an opacity change. You can see in the shadow, the opacity is changing. And so forth. I'm going to cancel out of that because we're not going to use any of this. We're going to use it just as is. Okay. All right. So that's how you apply a style, and you do that with your move tool. Okay. You just click on the graphic, and whatever is black will be kind of debossed, or, it's almost like a wood carver cut it out of a background. Okay. And so I'll collapse that. Okay. So this is basically our graphic here. And we're going to take a look at that. We may tweak the, positioning of this. Maybe I click on this, and kind of inch it up. I'm going to use my up arrow key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just kind of separate it a little bit more. I like the way that looks. Okay. You might want to even back out of this. I like to back out so I can see the desktop around it, and to, demagnify, we know that it's spacebar, command, and option. Those three, 1, 2, 3, hold them down, click in the center, and that backs you out. And notice when you can see the desktop around it, kind of gives you a better idea of how centered it is, how comfortable it feels, and so forth. And I use this a lot to adjust spacing. Okay, so I like this, all right, and I'm done. Now, what I always recommend, if this were a real job, is that you save this graphic as a Photoshop file. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is go up to File and, okay, notice how when we opened it, it was the Husky graphic, and we don't want to overwrite that. Okay, because that was the black and white illustration that we started with. We don't want to, when we first open this up, this is the Husky graphic right here. Okay, that right there. We don't want to save over this because then we'll lose this and we won't have this. So what we want to do is go up to File and Save As, okay, not Husky graphic, but let's say, Husky sign version 1 or something, as a Photoshop file. Now, saving it as a Photoshop file here means that we're going to, if we open this up again, we're going to have our layers intact. Okay, all of our layers are going to be here. We can make revisions and so forth. So we want to make sure that we save this as a Photoshop file. But to insert it in the mockup, it's going to have to be a JPEG. Okay, so I'm going to save this out as a JPEG. I already saved this out. We'll assume that we saved this out as a Photoshop file. That was the first thing that we did. Now we're going to come back and we're going to save a copy as a JPEG. So I'm going to come down here to Format, and I'm going to select JPEG. Okay, and I'm going to call this, let's say, Husky graphic or Husky art number 1, version 1. Okay, and I'll save this to my desktop and click Save. Okay, and so here it is right there. Okay, here's my wolf graphic, or my Husky art PSD, let's say, and this is my Husky art JPEG. These are different, right? The PSDs have layers, but the JPEG does not have any layers. Okay, we can't open up a JPEG in Photoshop and make type revisions. We'd have to redo everything. Okay, so once we have that, now I'm going to click on our Husky graphic, and I'm going to apply another layer style. This time I'm going to go over to my layer styles, and I'm going to go all the way up to rabbit fur right there. Okay, and when I click on that, it gives that the appearance of now the fill right now is only 25%. I have to change this to 100%. So I'm going to pull this over and it'll get much brighter there. Okay, because that layer style actually makes it have a fill of 25%. So you're going to have to change that all the way to 100%. Okay, that brightens that up. And if you notice, rabbit fur is just simply a texture. You see how it looks like rabbit fur? Okay, whatever. Okay, now I want to do that to the text as well. So I'm going to click on the text with the move tool, not the text tool. With the move tool, click on the text, make sure it's selected in your layers palette, and then again hit rabbit fur. Okay, and since I changed it to 100%, it will stay there. Then I'm going to click bar and grill, there's bar and grill, and hit rabbit fur, and that changes that. Okay, so now I have that version as well as the embossed version. Okay, I'm going to save this. Now, I don't necessarily have to save this as a Photoshop file because I already saved this one as a Photoshop file. If you want to, you can also. But that's up to you. Usually I'll save everything as Photoshop files and then everything as JPEGs as well. So I'll go now to save a copy, and then I'll come over and I'll call this Husky Art 2, version 2. Make sure that it is a JPEG. Saving it to the desktop, not here. Always look here because that's where your file is being saved to. Click desktop, so desktop is where it's going to be saved to, and I'll click save. Okay, maximum quality. Okay, there it is. Okay, I have 3 files here. One is this one should say Husky Art PSD, Husky Art 1 PSD, Husky Art 2 PSD, and then Husky Art JPEG, Husky Art 2 JPEG, and so forth. So we should have 4 files here. Anyway, it's the JPEGs that we're going to use to insert in the mockup. Okay, so we have our art created, and now what we're going to do is we're going to insert it in the mockup. So let's go to our mockup and let's open this up in Photoshop. In fact, it's already a Photoshop document, so we'll just double click here and that will open in Photoshop. There it is. Okay. All right. If you look over here in your layers palette, now this is a file that another artist created, an artist that is giving you their mockup for free. And over here you can see 2 layers. One is the background layer, which is the background photo, and the other is the graphic that you see inside of that sign. Okay, this is what we're going to replace, the graphic. We're going to keep the background layer, but we're going to replace the graphic. This little kind of thumbnail right here in this thumbnail, this little one in the lower right corner, is called a smart object thumbnail. And that means that this is a smart object and enables you to make a change and replace what you're seeing. And that's exactly what we want to do. So we want to open up the smart object, and that's going to, I'm going to double click on this thumbnail here, and that's going to open up. Notice another tab opened up. And this is the tab of the graphic itself. Okay, this has nothing to do now with the background. This is just the art that you see in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our JPEG over here and we're going to drag it in, and we're going to replace this with our JPEG. So I'm going to take Husky Art 1 JPEG, and I'm going to click and drag it over here, and there it is. Okay, you can see that Husky Art 1 came in above this graphic. Now we don't need this graphic, so I can turn this off. Doesn't really matter if you turn it off or not, but I just usually turn it off because we're not going to use this. And then we're going to use our Husky Art, and we're going to Command T, and I'm going to hold the Option key down, and I'm going to enlarge this from the center. okay, all the way until it reaches the top and bottom of this, okay, of this. So it fills the entire shape, all right? And then I'm going to hit return. Okay, so now this is my smart object right here. Okay, I'm not using this one. Now, in order to get it to fill that sign, into that sign, once you do this, all you do is do a save, Command S. So we've replaced this and now we're going to save it. So Command S, okay? Now it doesn't look like anything happened, but if we go back to our mockup here, voila, okay, it's replaced inside of this mockup in this photograph. So now the client can see exactly what this would look like in their sign that they have sitting in front of their restaurant. Okay, this is one of the pieces that you're going to upload to the assignment. So let's get this exported as a JPEG. Okay, all we're going to do again is go up to File and we're going to save a copy. Okay, make sure you save a copy. We're going to come over here and I'm going to call this, final sign 1. Okay, because we're going to have a version 2 as well. I'm going to make sure that this is a JPEG because that's what we have to upload to Canvas. Now, if you want to save this as a Photoshop file, you can also, but you don't really need to, but you can. Final sign 1 JPEG, and I'm going to save it to the desktop, okay? Not to Mockup, but to the desktop. Make sure desktop is here and click Save. Okay, and click OK. So now I should have my final sign here. Okay, and that includes this. Okay, now let's go and make the other sign. Replace this with the other sign. I'm going to go back to my, double click on my smart object. And instead of this now, okay, I'm going to maybe even delete this layer. Okay, click on this layer and hit the trash can down here. Okay, get rid of that. And then take my rabbit fur version, drag that over here, and then do the same thing. Now, if you want to back out a little bit, you can so that you can see the edges here, the top and bottom. Hold the Option key down, grab any one of these handles here, and enlarge until it fills all the way up to the top and the bottom. You can overlap a little bit, that's okay. Sometimes I'll overlap just a hair just to make sure it covers it. Okay, and then let go of the mouse, hit return to set that. Now, how do we get this to fill inside the mockup? We do Command S, Command S. Okay, we go back to our mockup, and there you go. Okay, that version is now inside of this mockup. We're going to save this out. So again, we'll go up to File, and we'll go to Save a Copy. Okay, and I like to, the naming convention I like to use is always consistent. So if I said Final Sign 1 here, I'm going to say Final Sign 2 here. If I said Husky Art 1, I'm going to say Husky Art 2. Okay, so we're going to come in and I'm going to say Final, oops, Final Sign 2, and it's not a PSD, it's going to be a JPEG. Okay, not to Mockup, but to desktop. So I click desktop, so desktop's here. Click Save, click OK, and I should have that. Okay, it actually appeared up here now. There it is. So now I have it there. Okay, these are the two here. This one and this one are the ones I'm going to upload to Canvas. Well, let's take a look and see what these look like. Okay, so On a Mac, if you select both of these and double click, it will automatically open it up in the program called Preview, and that's only on a Mac. I think Windows has their own Preview. So I double click, and you can see Preview up here opened up, and these are my two versions. Okay, you can see this is version 1, this is the full version, and a lot of times these things come out so big that I kind of like to reduce them down a little bit. You can also view these full screen if you want. Enter full screen. So if I wanted to take over my entire screen, I can see that. Okay. And then this, I hit my right arrow key, and that takes you to the next one. Okay, so that's version 1, or version 2 and version 1. Version 2 and version 1. And when we're showing clients, you know, we might show them different versions of different sign designs and all kind of things, but they would always be in this mock-up because this is the sign frame that it's going to go into. So it's a great way. I'm going to hit my escape key. Okay. And so this is a great way to show clients your work in a realistic, environment. Okay, that is the assignment. You're going to upload this to the photos, the mock-up photos, to Canvas. I'm going to take a look and see, and now that you know how to use a mock-up, there are other mock-ups that are a little bit more complex, and maybe we'll get into a few more before the semester is over. But the whole idea is to, show these in a really cool and fun way rather than just a, square piece of art. There are also many tutorials on YouTube, just to let you know, that teach you how to create your own mock-up, how to take a photo of a scene and be able to create a smart object out of something that you can swap out with other pieces of art very easily. So there are tutorials. Just type in YouTube how to create a mock-up, a Photoshop mock-up, and there'll be lots and lots of tutorials showing you how to do that. It's a little bit more complex when you're making your own mock-up, but it might be something that you have to do where you can't use a standard kind of template mock-up like we did. Okay, so we're kind of in our last half of the semester, and things are going to start heating up now. Showing you some other things in Photoshop and InDesign, but for now, I will see you in class, and you can have some fun with this one. And if you have any questions, you can ask me once you get started with this. Okay, that's all. Signing off. I know this is a long video, but anyway, I'll see you next week.